was our iron roughneck, the offshore model, the BD160 floor wrench. That was selected by a company called Atlantica.
When you say brake torque, that's for when you are undoing the pipes,
that's
disconnecting.
Correct. Like exactly. So when you're pulling out a hole and disconnecting pipe, that's called breaking out. We've got several versions of what are called service rig catwalks or workover rig catwalks. And so those are a little bit smaller units and they're for different applications than drilling.
Welcome to episode 10 of Crownsmen Energy. Today we are joined by Jessie McDougall. She is the CFO and partner of Drillform Technical Services, and she's here to give us an in-depth look at their design, manufacturing, and service of automated drilling equipment. But before we get started, let's thank our sponsors. Today we are actually sponsored by Cal Tire. For nearly 50 years, Cal Tire's Mining Tire Group has been helping mines improve tire life, operating costs, and productivity. As independent suppliers, they help you choose the best tires for your environment and goals from a vast selection of trusted brands and custom retreads. As tire management partners, they also leverage new technology and tools to promote safety and efficiency at every step. To learn more, please visit caltiremining.com or email them at info@caltire.com. We're also sponsored by Savannah Equipment. Are you working on pipelines, oil and gas projects, renewable energy, or LNG, and need to save some cash? Well, Savannah Equipment has industrial pumps, electrical equipment from motors to transformers, and even surplus pipe and much, much more available now. Visit savannahequipment.com where you will find more equipment every day. We're also sponsored by PowerZone. When you need a specialized team of world-class engineers for your oil and gas pipelines, dewatering, or any fluid handling needs, you want to visit powerzone.com. In addition to their inventory of rebuilt pumps, motors, engines, they also have an amazing team to design and engineer your systems no matter the challenge, no matter the location. Get in the zone with PowerZone. Visit them at powerzone.com. Alrighty, let's get started with episode 10. Here is Jared Downey and Jessie McDougall.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Crownsmen Show. I am your host, Jared Downey. This is episode 10. And today we have Drillform Technical Services. Our guest is Jessie McDougall. She is the CFO of Drillform. Thank you, Jessie, for coming on. How are you?
I'm great, Jared. Thanks for having me.
You know, I'm quite excited about this episode because I actually ended up spending, in my prep, usually I have a certain amount of time, but I ended up quite late going through because it's quite interesting what you've done. When Rory first booked the show, I thought, oh, it's a drill company there, but you are definitely not just a drill company. Can you just give that quick snapshot of what Drillform is and what you produce?
Sure, sounds great, Jared. We are an accelerated R&D company working in upstream oil and gas. So basically we build automated drilling rig equipment. And so we specialize in one specific arm of automated drilling equipment, which is pipe handling. So one of the areas of the highest number of safety incidents on drilling rigs is actually around handling of pipe. And historically it was really not very automated. And so our company focuses on building remote controlled automated units for drilling rigs.
Where are you doing? So you're actually building these units, and we're going to get into it. I mean, they're if you like heavy industry, they're beautiful units. But where does this all take place? Where are you putting these together, the design team and everything like that?
Well, originally, this is the brainchild of a number of Canadian field service technicians, folks who've worked on drilling rigs for a long time, and Canadian engineers, mechanical engineers. So it's a very, very Canadian-centered origins. Our headquarters is in Canada, in Calgary, and we do a lot of the assembly work and design work out of Canada.
Oh, okay. Let's jump right into it because you've got a couple really neat products, and I want to get into it right away. you're going to have to forgive my bad terminology, because in the industry there's technical terminology and then there's the actual terminology. So I will stumble through it and then you just correct everything that I say. There is you make a cylinder and die changes, and there's a couple different models. I think they're called the Bulldog, I think is what you branded them at. Can you talk a little bit about those, and then we'll bring up some pictures and everything for the audience as you kind of walk through those?
Sure. So our two key units that Drillform makes, we call our whole intellectual property suite the Bulldog series. But the two key units that we build and that we have 20 plus years of expertise in building are called iron roughneck, or we also call them automated floor wrenches, and then catwalks, automated catwalks. So both of these tools are designed for handling pipe on drilling rigs with different applications. So the Catwalk is a unit that moves the 30-foot long strings of metal pipe from the ground up to the rig floor and then back down again. So so that's what the Catwalk specializes in. And this used to be a manual process. It used to be a group of guys handling with rope and chain, moving pipe up and down from the ground to the drill floor. So that's one of the units that we specialize in, which is Catwalks. And the other one is the automated floor wrench, which is also known as an iron roughneck in industry parlance. And that is effectively a huge wrench, literally just a huge wrench. So each of those 30-foot strings of pipe have threading at each end of them. And as you're going into the hole to drill or pulling out of the hole once you're finished, you connect and disconnect each of those 30-foot strings of pipe. And the tool that we designed that we call the Bulldog, we have a couple different sizes of it. The Bulldog 160 is our primary tool. That has actually 160,000 foot-pounds of breakout torque and 130,000 foot-pounds of makeup torque. So it's huge, right? If you think of a Ferrari, it has 400 foot-pounds of torque in its engine, right? And we're talking about 160,000 foot-pounds, right? So it's big machinery, yeah.
So when you say brake, of course, everybody in the industry watching this already knows the answer, but that when you say brake torque, that's for when you are undoing the pipes,
that's
disconnecting.
Correct. That's exact. So when you're pulling out a hole and disconnecting pipe, that's called breaking out. And so that's when you need a little bit extra torque for that operation. And then when you're coming into the hole, you're making up pipe. It's known as making up pipe, and you need a little bit less power to do that.
Right. So I noticed on your website there's, so the BD, which I assume stands for Bulldog 90, there's an automated floor wrench. And then I saw a 130, and then you said there's a 160. So do you have three sizes, or is there?
We designed a smaller one several years ago, the BD 90, and we have a few of those operating in the Permian Basin in Texas. We've since designed two other models, and we refer to them as the BD 120 and the BD 160. So we used to call the 160 the 130. But we now call it the 160 because industry parlance is usually you refer to it by its maximum capacity, its breakout torque.
Oh, right.
Torque. So we changed our terminology around that. But yes, it's 160,000 foot-pounds. That's our larger model. So that unit is for offshore rigs and for sort of heavier duty applications.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's the difference. I'm curious, just before, I want to go up, the catwalks are so cool, but I wanted to stay on these for a bit. Who is their design? I was looking at your website, and it looks like you have some pretty heavy hitters in the design. Who is the main person that sort of puts these designs together? Because I was watching how they come in. Again, we'll show some little clips of the video, but how they work. And then I was watching, I think it was on the 160, they were changing out the I'll call them the teeth that grab the pipe and that sort of thing. It's the dies, yeah. It's very beautiful design. And who is the sort of the leads that all these projects?
Yeah, well, what's a little bit cool about Drillform and why I even got involved personally as an investor and started to work with Drillform about 2 years ago is this team has been doing exactly this kind of machinery for over 20 years. So Drillform had a predecessor company called Pragma, which they founded
Right.
also in Canada in the late 1990s. And they were amongst the first to commercialize catwalks, and they brought the automated roughneck step changes forward from where the industry was at in the early 2000s. And they, actually in the late 1990s, no drilling rig really had a catwalk on it. And now you wouldn't see a drilling rig that doesn't have a catwalk on it. So really it was that big of a transformation over a 20-year time frame. And our team was pretty pivotal in that transformation and through our designs. And so the team that founded Pragma included Pat McDougall, and Todd McCorriston was part of the Pragma organization, as was Mark Taggart. And so they're three of the core partners in Drillform, and they're all integral to the designs of our automated tools. And so they've each had 20 plus years, a range of both field experience where they're on the rigs and seeing how people get injured, and even sometimes fatal injuries around handling. Yes, it's actually dramatic when you think there's lots of fingers and lots of toes and lots of personnel injuries around rig floor accidents, and the majority of those are around pipe handling, in fact. So
yeah, I just saw one recently. I was at an event, and there was a guy that he got mangled pretty good. Yeah.
I mean, if you think of it, you'll have bins of 30-foot long metal pipes that have to roll onto other pieces of equipment to be moved up to the drill floor or back down from the drill floor. Any accident with those where that bin of pipes gets released, and if somebody's in front of that, they can be crushed, right? So right. It's the way these get engineered and the kinds of safety enhancements that you can bring to this industrial operation is material, right? So we have a group of people that had field experience, often kind of 25 plus years of field experience on drilling rigs, who knew how things could be done more efficiently, right? Either faster, better, lighter, and more safely, and removing people from what we call the red zone, which is kind of the spinning danger zone on the rig floor, and getting them to operate these tools with remote controls, right? And then we had mechanical engineers. So a lot of people talk about petroleum engineering in our industry, but actually we focus on mechanical engineering. So most of the people who are working on our machines are mechanical engineering specialists. So you have to see the finite element analysis and see how all of these complex components interact, and to build these great tools that are fast and light and provide the step changes in efficiency that you need.
I was, when I'm doing my research, I wasn't actually familiar. Again, people watching the industry will be like, really, you didn't know about this? But these catwalks, they really were born, not even the automated ones that you're doing, but the original ones, they were born out of the sort of the introduction of pad drilling into the industry. Is that right? And so there's a lot more changing over of pipes and inserting the different tools, or for what I'm not saying it right, but the different mechanisms that are needed to go into the drill holes. It's just a continual process that needs to happen with the introduction of pad drilling. Is that where the catwalk originally kind of came prominent in the industry, and now you brought this as sort of the next level of the catwalk?
Well, I would argue the popularity of the catwalk might have predated pad drilling a little bit.
Oh.
But I think you're right that there's been a huge shift in well configurations and in the type of that companies are drilling, that has brought about, that has certainly accelerated the use of catwalks. And part of that is, so when in our predecessor company, so it was called Pragma, that was based in Canada, and we actually sold in 2006 to a NYSE listed company, Neighbors Industries. So their subsidiary Canrig bought Pragma and all of its intellectual property in 2006 for a phenomenal return on investment for our founders. But they, at the time, were designing for, as you're referring to, they were designing for very different well configurations. These were much more shallow wells and sort of lighter and medium duty applications on the wrench. So in terms of the torque specifications and requirements, they were much simpler at that time. And now what you see is more modern well configurations are drilling much deeper wells and they're drilling much more horizontally. And so the demands on the equipment that we built in the late 1990s are just completely different to what the current conditions are. So, so actually, that's in a way what prompted us to found Drillform after selling Pragma in 2006, was to say, okay, now we built these great tools, the Torquematic or the TM80 and the TM120. These are the predecessor wrenches that we designed. Hundreds of these are operating globally, and they're fantastic tools, but they were designed for a lighter kind of application, more shallow wells, and less precision on the torque was required at the time. So we realized the industry had really shifted. There are greater demands from pad drilling. There are greater demands from going deeper and doing more horizontal drilling. And in fact, there's been a huge evolution in R&D on drill pipe itself. So drill pipe has become much more sophisticated and more complex. And in fact, there's premium drill pipe now that has double shoulders on it, which makes it more difficult to make up with those older fashioned floor wrenches. So what we did is we designed for modern applications. We said, let's build for premium drill pipe so that we can handle those double shoulders, and let's build so that we can be highly precise on each connection and disconnection. And let's do data acquisition. Let's let people have remote control, diagnostics and troubleshooting, right? So even on machines that historically used to not have that, we can provide connection by connection, what happened on every single connection. And that can be hugely beneficial for drillers and operators when they're looking at maybe expensive downhole problems they've had. They can say, well, was it due to that one string of pipe, or did somebody not make up that pipe correctly and it caused a really expensive downhole problem? And that's the kind of data that we can provide and assist with efficiencies of operations.
It's so interesting. Like I said, when because Rory Bamford, our producer, he brought the show to me, and I went, oh, it's a drill. I heard Drillform, and I went, oh, a drill company, good. And then then a couple days later, I opened up the file. I went, oh, I'm going to have to do some research on this one because it's very interesting what you're doing. I want to talk. Let's go through. I wanted to get into a couple of the sites that you're on, Jessie. But before we do that, let's highlight just the different models of the Catwalk, because you've got the Bulldog DC 440 and you've got the Bulldog DC 1200. Can you walk us through both those units and the differences between them?
Yeah, in fact, we have even more models than that. I think we've got several versions of what are called service rig catwalks or workover rig catwalks. And so those are a little bit smaller units, and they're for different applications than drilling. And so we have a number of units of those, right from not very automated push-up versions all the way through to automated remote controlled service rig catwalks. And we also have 3 series right now of drilling rig catwalks, and we call them the Bulldog 441, the Bulldog 442, and the Bulldog 443. And what that really means is the 441 is a single, so it handles singles of drill pipe, and the 442 handles doubles, so you can connect up 2 pieces of 30-foot drill pipe, and you can handle that and bring it up and down to the drill floor in a doubles format, already made up as a double. And then we also have a triple handler, the BD 443, and that one will take triples of drill pipe up to the drill floor and back down. And so the efficiencies again, when it's about what we discussed about the evolution of well configurations. When you used to drill in Western Canada, maybe a couple thousand feet down, maybe the efficiency of going one pipe at a time wasn't such a big deal. But if you're now looking at, we're on, for example, a 38,000 foot well, when you can make them up in triples and then, drill and pull out of the hole in triples, this is you can save significant productive time. So a lot of these rigs, their day rates, they have rental day rates that can be, if it's an offshore rig, it can be well in excess of $100,000 a day. So if you can save even a few hours a day of tripping time by making up in doubles and triples, you can save them. You can save the cost of the unit in a matter of 6 months. So it's really phenomenal, actually. So that's why we have different sizes of units.
Actually, thanks for clarifying that, because that is quite important. And then that 1200 that's a bigger unit that's that's specifically for the pad drilling. Is that right?
That's a smaller unit, and
Oh,
right now we're mostly selling the 441s, 442s, and 443s. So
oh, okay.
I should update our website. I need to do that.
well, and I need to update my knowledge as well. But that's why we do the show. It's an educational piece for me as well. So we talked a little bit about the history of the company already, and I think this would be a good time to actually shift into some of these projects. Now, I understand. I mean, especially in the industry that you're serving, you can't necessarily say, "Oh, we're on this site and it's working for this." So, I won't push the point of where everything is. But could you highlight a couple projects? I know you've got some overseas. You've got some interesting projects down into South America, doing some offshore. Can you highlight a couple of those?
Sure. Yeah, we're on some very exciting projects right now. So I know the oil and gas market right now is really tough, but actually,
Mm-hmm.
because we're an R&D accelerator company, we're not really competing in a commoditized space. We're head to head with kind of older technology. We actually feel we've had good fortune in this market. Our technology was selected on a very large scale Middle Eastern infrastructure project. It's actually an offshore man-made island project specifically for drilling rigs, and they're large rigs. And it's actually a national oil company that's partnered up with Exxon. So we were selected on that rig for our iron roughneck technology, and it has performed really, really well. And these are tough operating conditions. Let me tell you, Jared, it's 80+% humidity most days, and it's often over 50 degrees Celsius, right? So it's difficult operating conditions, certainly. And our wrench has performed really, really well. And this is also a difficult well configuration, aside from the environmental conditions. It's actually 10,000 foot drilling straight down and then almost 30,000 feet horizontally from there. So it's one of the longest wells drilled in the world. Not the longest, but it's close, button up there. Yeah.
That's well, yeah. I was because I keep trying to tell guests, well, you need to bring us on site to do some of these interviews, and then I said that, and then you went through the details of the environment, and I went, well.
No, yeah, no, it's tough. It's really tough, and actually, they're really strict about getting visas to get people onto those islands, and you have to have offshore helicopter training to be able to be a technician, and even to go and install one of these units. It's really quite complex, and so that's
sorry.
Yeah,
Oh, I was just going to ask, actually, something that always interests me about newer technology. Newer in the industry being within 10 years. I mean, it's such an old industry. When you are in a major project like that, in a harsh environment and strict rules and policies and all this type of thing, when the equipment comes on site, when your product lands on site, does the equipment continue to evolve on site, or do you continue to develop it, or does it have to come and be absolutely ready to working condition, or is there an opportunity to go, oh, we're running into this problem, okay, we need to upgrade this and adjust this?
That's a great point, Jared. There's a bit of each. There are some operators that do not want you to put a prototype on their rig. They just don't even want to consider, and it depends how pivotal that unit is, because we produce a suite of products, and some things are integral to the drilling, some you can stop working that unit and everything can continue progressing, right? But there are certain units that they really don't want to see any non-productive time stemming from a new or prototype unit. But we were very fortunate with that offshore project in the Middle East, in that we sent them a relatively new unit. And although we have hundreds of these operating in the field of different iterations, but there were some innovations in this, and actually we have made some upgrades due to the operating conditions there on the back of it, but they were really at our choice as opposed to it working and needing to be amended. But you're absolutely right. That's an interesting point, because a lot of companies are hesitant to take on prototypes, and we fully recognize that. So what we try to do is as much testing in advance of it going onto a site, and if we can put it on with an operator who knows our history of equipment from the last 20 years of designs that we've put into the field, and they understand, okay, and also you have to send out fantastic field service techs. So you have to send out really experienced people who can tear that thing down and build it back up in almost no time, to give them the confidence that you're going to have a unit that really supports their operations. So you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Well, I found it interesting, and because of course, when you've got a technology, you're as you do every project, there's going to be feedback, and in some cases, can you upgrade it during the actual operation, or do you have to wait till the next project before you can implement those? It's always a challenge of technology, right?
It is, and one of the design features that my colleagues are most focused on is trying to make it really serviceable in the field. So the idea is we have a really modular design, and I think you saw the videos of
Yes.
eye changeouts and the cylinder changeouts. And I think if you're familiar with the competing iron roughnecks, it's really eye-opening that you can change those in minutes and on site. Whereas some of these things require to be sort of taken out of service and maybe multiple hours or even days, or taken away to be reserviced and change out certain spare parts. So that's a really big difference in terms of reducing non-productive time for operators, right? And making it easy. Ideally, I think a lot of field service techs charge about $1,500 a day, US dollars, $1,500 a day to come on site and to do repairs and changeouts. And so if we can sell a unit to an operator that they can do the changeouts themselves really easily, really readily, we can save them, tens of thousands of dollars a year, in ongoing maintenance costs. So just to give you a ballpark sense, a lot of these units cost somewhere in the range of 500,000 US dollars. But the operating cost can be, for our units, often $30,000 to $50,000 a year. But it's not unheard of for iron roughnecks, particularly in very difficult operating conditions, to have $300,000 a year of operating costs. So imagine you buy a unit that costs you $400,000 or $500,000, and then it costs you another $300K per year to keep it running, right? So the cost of whether you have to have a service tech on site, and whether you can do some of the maintenance yourself, and also how durable the unit is for the heavier duty applications, it's not just about the ticket price, it's about the ongoing cost of operations, right? Cost of ownership. So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I told you when we started the interview, I'm actually looking at a different camera, so I can't always see, so I have to sometimes guess when someone's wrapping up there, so I'm sorry about that. I wanted to shift into something, Jessie, because, I want to talk, how am I going to do this? I'm going to make a comment about it, and then we'll circle back to it a little bit in a couple of minutes, because there's another project that I wanted to highlight. But when I saw that you're the CFO of a company, we haven't actually had a lot of CFOs on the company, and I know you have that technical knowledge that you've developed from working with the company. But it's nice to see it's always interesting with people that can approach it from that financial side, that are able to break down the numbers very smoothly in correlation with the product. So it's very interesting. And I want to talk a little bit about your professional career. But I think there's one more project we should highlight. I think it's down in Brazil. Do I have that right? I think it's a big offshore project.
Yes, it is. So we're very excited about it. Our technology, again, it was our iron roughneck, the offshore model, the BD160 floor wrench. That was selected by a company called Atlantica, and they run tender assist rigs. They're based in Houston. They've been doing this for a very long time. They're very experienced with our technology, as well as the competing iron roughneck technology, and they could not be more excited about our wrench, which we agree with. And they selected it for the Papa Terra project, which is a Petrobras and Chevron partnership, and it's a deep water offshore Brazil project. And this is a huge project for Petrobras, and we're very excited to be selected as a technology on that project. It's really high profile for us, and and a great forum to collect even more field data on that great ranch. So yeah, we're very excited to work with them.
I'm going to do a pure plug for the company right now, but it's an important one. Do you think, if you were to do a percentage as a guess, what percentage of it is the technology that's giving a company like Drillform these opportunities, or what percentage is it of the approach? I mean, obviously there's a huge cost savings, there's safety, there's all these value adds that you have, but you still have to service it. The company still has to want to work with you. What do you think is the balance there? With the reason these companies are giving Drillform these opportunities on these major projects?
Well, I think you raise a great point. It's absolutely a mix. I think it's hard to break down an exact percentage, but you're absolutely right that you don't win 100% on technology or price. You have to support it with really great field service. You have to support your equipment with really great field service. So we actually don't hire the cheapest technicians to come and work with us. These are people who actually know how to assemble the equipment and really, really know how to repair it. And so when we send someone on site, you get a knowledgeable and really experienced person to help repair and troubleshoot. So, and that's not simple, right? And so, but I think it's key, because you basically aren't going to win in terms of putting a brand new technology on an expensive operating site if you can't support it with good field technicians. So. And a lot of the competing equipment manufacturers have big service teams, and with mixed reviews of how that comes out in the wash. But I think you have to have both. You have to have great technology, and you have to have a great field service team. But I would say one of the reasons that we're winning business, particularly with that iron roughneck, is a lot of the technology that we're competing with is as old as our old technology, or older. Yeah. So when we sold our technology to Neighbors Canrig, they have made barely any changes since 2006 to those units. And as I mentioned, wow. I know, and as we discussed, the market has significantly moved on in terms of the types of wells that those units are meant to be operating on. So if you can demonstrate that you have, let's say, we think our torque precision, so versus what they're targeting on a makeup and what we can achieve on a makeup, we're plus or minus 0.25%. That's our accuracy level. And a lot of our competitors are in the plus or minus 5%. That's so material in terms of precision and savings on downhole problems that you can go to an operator and say, look, we save you on not damaging the drill pipe, on being able to handle premium drill pipe, on torque precision, and we save you on ongoing maintenance costs. And that can, that's, I guess, the technology winning the deal, right? And if we can demonstrate that there is no competing technology that is operating in that kind of level, which I think is the case right now, then we have to win that business. Like I really don't see why in 5 years' time anyone would have an iron roughneck without the features that we have right now, because they're just they're so differentiated. What happens is sometimes very large companies have a suite of intellectual property and they want to monetize it over time. The less you can invest, the more you kind of squeeze out of the cash flow, right? Of an old intellectual property suite. So that's, to some extent, that's the incentives of a larger firm. And also, I think there's an interesting thing about small companies versus large companies in terms of R&D, and you'll probably see that a lot in your interviews, is that large companies, when they try and do R&D, they use a huge team, a big committee, and they take years and years to do it, and they probably do it at about 5 to 10 times the cost that we would, right? So that just makes, we can do a lean R&D kind of fast process and really blue sky. We don't have to protect legacy technology that we need to kind of milk the cash flow out of. We don't have to do that, right? Whereas some of the competitors do have to do that. So I think it's a mix. We win on the technology because we're really taking a step change forward, but you have to have the service alongside or you won't win. It's mixed. It's a mix.
That is very, very well laid out, Jessie. And I think, and that's why you were a little hesitant. You didn't want to make it about yourself. But I think it's important, especially hearing how you lay that out. A team is made up of people that bring different skill sets, and sometimes that's from very different industries. And I going on your LinkedIn and seeing sort of where your professional journeys. I mean, you were a visiting professor somewhere. You came out of I think you were in investment banking. Let's spend a few minutes talking about what that journey was for you, and then what that brings to the table now for working with a company like Drillform.
Thanks, Jared. I did start out in investment banking. I started out my career in investment banking. I actually worked for a Canadian investment bank called BMO Nesbitt Burns, which was an arm of Bank of Montreal. I worked for them out of Toronto, and then also they had a branch office in London in the UK. So I worked out of both of those offices in investment banking. And after that, I studied at London Business School, and then I worked as a proprietary trader. So I was an investor for a long time. I worked at Barclays Capital and in their investment banking arm. And then what happened was in late 2017, I've also founded an investment fund, and then I sold that. That was in the UK. But in late 2017, one of the founders of Drillform actually came to me just for advice, totally unrelated, not a compensated discussion. They came to me asking for advice about a financing structure that they were looking at accepting from an institutional investor. And they showed me the term sheet, and they said, "What do you think about this investment?" And I looked, of course, I had to learn a little bit more about the company to understand, well, why would you be interested in a financing like this? And, what is your intellectual property suite like? And what's the use of capital, etc. And once I dug into it a little bit further, I thought, well, this is really, really exciting, right? This is, you're competing in a field where some of the competing technology is 15 years old. So this team used to be at the forefront of Catwalks and Iron Roughnecks, and then they sold that entity, restarted, and they're still at the forefront of this technology. And I thought, as a finance person, you think about efficient markets, right? You're drilled into you in your education that markets are efficient and people are constantly trying to compete. And here we were in a space where, fast forward 12 years, the competitors really hadn't even caught up with this team that were innovating in the space. And I thought, well, that's very exciting. And so I actually personally invested and accepted a role in the company in early 2018 after I dug into it a little bit harder, because I thought, well, this is exciting. This can only go one way. This technology is going to take over the industry. But it isn't very linear. I'll admit that to you, Jared. I have been investing for a long time, but in very different types of instruments than Drillform. That's true.
Yeah. I'm curious about something, and it's, you and I outside of this show, I mean, we're in different circles, so you don't always get a chance to talk to people with your particular background that have now went into heavy industry. I mean, you said you're an actual investor, so you put your money there and your time in. What is the through line for you, or multiple through lines? Because I think most people have a couple. That sort of is your approach to the success you had. And you obviously have had a lot of success and are continuing to expand on it. Is there a couple sort of key values that you bring with you sort of in whatever you're doing that you think have sort of dictated, or have those values changed as you've expanded into your career?
Gosh, I'd have to think about that. I think I bring a lot of hard work to both Drillform and the roles that I did before. I was a keen researcher when I was a portfolio manager and investigating different investment strategies. I really enjoyed that process. Actually, that's tremendously fun. And I actually felt there was a big multiple return. I thought it was a little bit of a contrarian play. I'll admit, to invest in oil and gas in this market. It is a contrarian play, but I'm not afraid of doing that. And that would be a thread running through my career as well, actually, probably making some contrarian plays. But I'm comfortable doing that. And I actually do have a reasonably high risk appetite. I mean, I co-founded an investment fund and ran it for 6 years in the UK. And that's not for the faint of heart either.
No, not even a little bit. No.
Not even a little bit. And an investment in drilling rig and oil field services equipment is also, it's not for the faint of heart. It's a highly volatile sector, but I absolutely knew that going in. I think if you've done any sectoral investments analysis, you would know that. And so, yeah, I guess those are the things I brought to the table. But and I had also founded and done a lot of the administration and operated as the CFO at that investment firm. And then I also sold that company. And so I think those things I thought I could bring to Drillform and provide utility to a team. The team is largely engineering and operations. So my team is used to building at huge scale and engineering, large scale and complex projects. So some of the machines have thousands of components in them, so it's really a complex operation, even just from the point of view of creating a bill of materials and executing on it, right? So they're multi-month builds for one unit, right? So it's it's highly complex. So but they didn't really have finance background in their team. So that's what I felt I could bring to the table for them. And it's been they're an amazing team to work with. Yes, it's very different than working in London at an investment bank, but in a really fun way, I have to say.
It sounds fun, and there's a little bit of a theme that I've noticed with the show that we didn't have a target to have. We just ask the questions and we get the answers. And one of it is that the people that seem to have success and continued success is they have a whole bunch of tools that they've developed. They have, like you said, the research, understanding principles of the market. And they've taken risks like yourself. You've taken major risks, but not without the proper tools in place to be able to tackle those risks. And it's such an important, you see a lot of, if you go onto, let's say, social media, you'll see a lot of people talking about risking everything. And it's like, yeah, take a risk once you have those tools. And that's certainly from what you're saying in your career, you've developed those tools that gave you the capability to take those risks.
I would agree. I think you want to think you have an edge when you're taking a risk, right? You don't want to take risks randomly. You want to believe that you have an edge that actually makes that decision less risky, right? That you have some sort of level of insider knowledge or market knowledge that allows you to believe that you're not taking as big of a risk as it looks like to an outsider. But I would agree, and multi-skill set. I mean, we're a relatively small firm. We have 3 locations, so we're based in Abu Dhabi, Canada, and in Texas. I'm in Texas, in fact. And we have these 3 facilities, and we're a small team, and we need to wear many hats as a small group, right? So I would agree with you on that multi-skill set idea. You're not just doing one thing in a small firm. You don't just have one role. You're not just creating financial reports. There's much more to it with a small team, right?
Well, you talked to Gowdy before the show. I think she sets everything. I think she does about 10 jobs here for us, so she'll know exactly what you mean if I don't. Jessie, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was. I said it a couple times. When I realized what Drillform was doing, I realized it was going to be a good show. And then combining the technology with your background, it was really good to have you on. We released the full episode, but we're also going to release some really good clips that you had from walking us through it. So thank you for joining us. I hope the people watching gain as much from it as I gained, the knowledge I gained just doing the interview.
Thank you so much for having me, Jared. It was really fun. I think you have a great mandate and a very exciting show. So thanks very much, Jared.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, everybody. Well, if you did enjoy that interview, I'll be honest, I think you're watching the wrong show. Jessie brings so much. Thank you for watching. It's been, we're 10 episodes into Crownsmen Energy now. We've got mining now. We've got the Crownsmen show. We've got so much support from the industry. So many more guests are coming on. We've got some big companies coming up that are being interviewed, and we still have our smaller companies. It's always a mix. So thank you for your support. Thank you to the guests. Thank you to the sponsors. Subscribe, comment, and we will talk to you on the next episode.
Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. Also, if you would like to help support the production of the show, head on over to crownsmen.com/donations, where you will find two options, the $5 monthly subscription option and the support heavy industry one-time donation. Again, that is crownsmen.com/donations. Thank you so much for your support, and we will see you on the next episode.